Be'ezus Hashem, today's daf is Metzia Daf Yud Aleph. We will begin by the Mishnah on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph Ra'ah. So the Mishnah begins, Ra'ah Oysun Rotzen Acha Metzia. If the man, owner of a field, saw people running after a Metzia, something was landed in his field. I don't know, let's say something dropped from a plane, landed in his field, and people are running to grab it. Or another example is Acha Tzavi Shavur, or they saw a broken deer, okay, and it's the broken deer means, let's say it broke its foot, so it's somehow ended up into his field, and this deer does not belong to anybody. Or another case is Acha Goizolish Parcho, or after pigeons, young pigeons that did not learn how to fly yet. So all these cases in the Mishnah, so he decides to beat everybody to it, and he says, it's my field. Zach Sali Sadi, my field should acquire these items. The Metzia, the deer, the pigeons. So Zach Sali, it belongs to the owner of the field. But, says the Mishnah, if a normal deer was running through his field, or you have pigeons that can fly. And he said, Zaksali Sada, I want my field to acquire it. Lo Yamaklum, he did not say anything. Okay, he did not say anything. So the Gemara is going to qualify that. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, that we said that you acquire in the beginning of the Mishnah, that you acquire the Metzia that's in your field. If you say, I want it, you have to stay right by the side of your field. You can't be far away and somebody tells you that there's a Metzia in your field and you say, oh, my field should acquire it. No, you have to be on the side, right there looking at your field. Because if you have an open field with no fence around it, that's called a chotze she'eno mishtameresh. That's a field that's not being watched. So nothing stays inside the field. So therefore, the only way this can work in our Mishnah, if you have an open field, is if the balabayis himself is right at the side of the field. And only then you could acquire it through your field. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina says, Chatzere shel Adam, the courtyard of a person, kainei loy, can be acquired items for him, shloimidate, that Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina said, that a courtyard, you don't even have to know about it. As soon as something enters your courtyard, you should acquire it. So why did Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel say you have to stay on the side of the field? Why can't they say, just because it's in my field, I should automatically acquire it? So the answer is because there's a qualification for that. Hani Mila, when do we say that it acquires without your acknowledgement? If you have a field that's being watched, in other words, there's a guard fence around it, so then you don't even have to know about it. As soon as something enters that field, you automatically acquire it. But if you have a field, a courtyard that's not being watched, so then if you're standing right at the side of the field, yes, and then you won't be acquired. If you're not standing right next to the field, you're not going to acquire it. And from where do I get this source? The chotzer she'ena mishtameres, that if a chotzer is not being watched, so then you have to be standing by the field, then it works. And if you're not, it doesn't work. The Tanya, we learned in a brisa. So first we're going to bring a brisa, and it doesn't make too much sense. And then we're going to qualify the brisa and explain it. The Tanya, we learned in a brisa, and this will prove that you need to be at the side of the field. Tanya, we learned in a brisa, if a man was in a city, and he says, I know, a man was in a city, and he had workers working in his field. And the din of the Torah is, one of the matnas aniyim is, if you forget a bundle in the field, it has to belong to the poor people. You have to give it to the poor people. But let's say the owner of the field is in the city, and he knows, and he says that I have a bundle that's in the field, and I know my workers forgot about it, but I didn't forget about it. Lo yehi shikha. I would have thought that's not matnas niyim. You don't have to give it to the poor person. So it shouldn't be shikha. Yochol lo yehi shikha. It should not be shikha. Talmud loimer v'shekachta oimer basodeh. If you forget the bundle in the field, basodeh v'shekachta. If you forget it in the field, v'loi bo'ir, and not in the field. So that was the Bryce's says something, and if you examine it, it makes not too much sense. Hagufo gash, Bryce contradicts itself one word to the next. Amrit, you said that if the owner of the field didn't forget about it and he's standing in the city, yochel lo yehi shikha, I would think it's not shikha. So I would think it's not shikha. Alma hava shikha. It is shikha, because the workers forgot about it, despite that the owner did not forget about it, it's still considered shikha and it has to be given to the poor. And then v'nasulei gemara, and then you bring a teaching from a pasuk basada v'shekachta v'loy be'ir, that only if you forget it in the field, but if you didn't forget it in the city, it's not shikha. Alma loy have a shikha, so then it's not shikha. So make up your mind. What's the story with a guy who's in the field, who's in the city, and he knows that his workers forgot a bundle in the field? Is it shikha? Is it not shikha? Lav hachikam. This is what the Brisa means to say. If in a field that the owner of the field forgot about it from the beginning, right? If he always forgot about it when he was in the field, he forgot about it, and then his workers forgot about it, then it's shikha, right? But if he remembered it and in the end his workers forgot it, then it's not shikha. Avol ba'ir. That's so that zochov so shliach ain't shikha. My tama kivin the koy gaba. Since he's right next to the field, and even if he's watching as his workers are working on the field and they forget it, but he's right there standing by the field and he didn't forget about it. It's his chotzev v'zachzalei. It belongs to the owner because he's standing right the field watching as his workers working. And if they forgot, but he didn't, then it's not shikha. Aval ba'ir, but if he's in the city, even if he remembered, right? But his workers forgot it, so he's not right by the field. Why? Because my tama that he's not right there to be zoich in it because he's in the city. So just because you remember it in your city, but since you're not standing at the field, it's not going to be saved. You have to give it to the anim, and this is what the teaching says. I would think it's not shekha. So the teaching is basad of shekha. If you're in the field, then you need that the owner has to forget it, but not in the city. We don't need that the owner needs to forget it because even just the workers alone make it shekha because he's not standing by the field. So we see from there that that there's a concept of standing right by the field, and only then you're zeicha. So the Gemara says, how do you know that you're reading the Brisa and the story correctly? Dilma maybe the Torah is telling you something special. The Besada nave shikha. Over here, loy nave shikha. Only if you forget in the field it's shikha, and in the city, if you in the city, it can never be shikha. In other words, that if the owner even forgot it in the city, right? He put his workers in charge, and then he's in the city, so that's not considered shikha. Maybe the Torah only makes the shikha matnas aniyim is only if he's in the field, his workers in the field, and he forgot it, and the workers forgot it. How do you know how the teaching of the Torah is very in favor of the aniyim? Al makra, because the pasuk says like sashav lekachta l'rabosh shikha seir. That teaches you. The Torah tells us never go back and take it, right? You forgot it, don't go back. So even if why does the Torah says, why didn't it say lois sikach? Why does it say lois soshav lekachtoi? So it must be that the Torah is even telling you that even if you're in the city and you forgot it, that it's still called shikha. If you forget something while you're in the city, and your workers forgot it, then it has a din of shikha. That teaches you a lav, that you're not allowed to go back to take something that you forgot. I mean, that is the teaching, that is the source of shikha in the Torah. In Cain, if that was only the reason, or my lois sashiv. Why does the Torah say lois sashiv? L'rabba shichas ear. So once we establish that that there is a concept of shichas ha'ir, so then and the shichas hasada, then we can define the difference between shichas hasada and shichas ha'ir. Shichas hasada, you have to actually forget. Shichas ha'ir, because you're not standing by the field, even if you didn't forget, but if your workers forgot, it's still considered shikha. So vakati mibayale, we still need the teaching of l'sash l'katra. L'ktan l'shefonov ein shikha. When you're cutting, only if you're starting to cut from the beginning of a row and you forgot in front, and then he forgot what's behind it. Let's say he started in the beginning. So whatever you left behind is shikha, and whatever is in front of you is not considered shikha. So we still need l'sash l'katra to teach you something. Zehaklal kol shu bal tashiv. If you have to turn around, shikha. Kol she'einu b'bal tashiv einu shikha. If you don't have to turn around, it's not shikha. So again, we need l'sashav l'kachta to teach you something, so it cannot teach you shikha se'ir. And says the Gemara, Amar Akra. So we have another pasuk. Yeah, lager ula yasai ula amon. Yeah, you should let these shikha remain for the matnasaniyim, the rabbi shikha se'ir. It's marba that it's even shikha here. If you forget something while you're in the city, that's called shikha. Okay, so what the Gemara just brought, and just was just a source, but basically you have to know that the basic concept of our Mishnah is that in order to acquire a Metzia in your field, just like that, you didn't make any kinyan on it, and you're talking about an open field which has no shmira around it, no guard gate around it. In order for you to acquire it, is one, you have to say you're acquiring it, and two, you have to be standing right by the field. Same idea, Ula said the same thing. That you are by the field. That you're standing right by the side of the field. So Rabbi asked the question, Ula, Maisa, we're going to see that you don't have to stand by the field. Maisa, Rabbi Gamliel is a Kain Shay Bottom Besfina. Rabbi Gamliel and some old other Tanoim coming from someplace, maybe from Rome, on a ship. Rabbi Gamliel remembered that he had Tevel in his house that he wanted to fix and give off Trumas and Maisres. And so first he said, Isa Shani Asad Lamad Nosli Yeshua. That Meiser Rishon that I'm supposed to give off the fruits that are back home. Again, they're in the ship. Our 10% should be given to Yeshua. Yeshua was a Levi, right? 10% should be given to Yeshua. Then Umakayma Muskalite. Now we go to my base. Umakayma Muskalite. The Umakayma Muskalite and the place underneath where the fruits are rented to him, so that therefore Yeshua, who is a Levi, could acquire that. Who could acquire it, right? So that he could acquire it. So now you can see already the problem. They're on a ship, and he's acquiring fruits on a field, on a piece of property that belongs to him, right? So he rented him the place. So in order to acquire the Maisa, the Isa Achar, Shani Yosef Lomed, and again, another 10% that I'm supposed to give for Maisa Oni, Nosni Akiva Yosef. I want to give it to Akiva Yosef, Kadesh Yiskabal Aniyam. She should acquire it on behalf of poor people. Muskalai. Muskalai, and the place underneath Muskalai, and the place underneath the area where the fruits are. The place underneath where the fruits are. Now the Gemara gets to the point. You just told me that you have to be at the side of the field in order to be kind of something. So here, V'chi Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Kiva, B'tzatz Deil She Rabbi Gamliel Hayamdim, was Rabbi Yeshua, who's the Levi, and Rabbi Kiva, who represented the poor people. Kinda were they standing on the side of the field of Rabbi Gamliel? That means they rented that field from Rabbi Gamliel, and the fruits that are on top of that place belong to them. And yet they acquire it. So we see you don't need to be standing on the side of the field to be kind of something, because they're all on the boat. Amalei. So this was the question that Rabba Abba asked Ula. So instead of Ula answering him, Amalei, so Ula said, responded, Domi Haimi Rabbanon Mikidolei Gome Enoshi Shmaitza. It seems to me that you never learned, were never taught on how to learn. But he still didn't have an answer. What's the answer? Also, Surah, when they came to Surah, Amalahu, they told him, Hachi Ama Ula. This is exactly, he told Ula, this is what Ula said. And he said, this is what I asked him, and I don't understand. He didn't give me a response. So this rabbi answered that what Ula meant to answer you is there in that Mishnah. It's not because he's because of chotzer. It's Rabbi Gamliel metaltale agav mekarka hikna lehem. It didn't even have to be. There's something called kinyan karka. That if you buy property, you automatically buy metaltalim, even if the metaltalim is not on the property. There's something called a kinyan agav, and therefore over there, it didn't need. It's not because of chotzer. It's because kinyan agav. Once you buy a property, along the kinyan of the property, you could buy movable items. So therefore, they didn't have to be at the side of the field. If they're kind of because of chotzer, then yes, they have to be at the side of the field. But they're kind of because of this new kinyan called agav. When you purchase property, along with the kinyan of the property, you can acquire, even without a kinyan, metaltalin. That's how they were acquire the payers. This was a great teretz. Reb Zera Kibla. Reb Zera accepted that answer. Rababa like Kibla. Rababa did not accept that answer. Omar Rava said, Shaper Ovid like Kibla. It's a good idea not to accept that answer. Because if they're koine, so why didn't they do it that way? In other words, he asked this question, V'chi lo yehoye lehem sudar liknois mimenu b'chalipin. Didn't they have like a handkerchief to be kind of a kinyan chalipin over there? Why can't you acquire the payros with chalipin? Let's say Rabbi Yeshua would give a handkerchief to Rabbi Gamliel, and Rabbi Gamliel would makna the fruits to Rabbi Yeshua. Why didn't he do that? It was much more simpler. Why do you have to rent the spot where the payros were? So the reason why he didn't do that simple kinyan of chalipin is because really Rabbi Gamliel doesn't even own the fruits. He could only decide which poor person to give it to, but really or which Levi to give it to, but he doesn't really own it. He only has the benefit to decide which Levi he's giving it to. So therefore, it's not money to be kind of with chalipin. So it's not worth anything, chalipin. So hachanami, the reason why agav doesn't work, it's because taivas anah animal liknis agabe karka. Taivas anah would not work to use the kinyan agav. The only kinyan that could possibly work is chotzer. It cannot work. It cannot work the kinyan of agav. So the Gemara says because it's not worth anything. The fruits are not worth it. His ownership in the fruits was not worth anything. The reason why chalipin doesn't work is not because it wouldn't have worked. It technically could have worked. But matnas kahuna nesina kasib bahu. Really, the Torah says when it comes to matnas kahuna, you have to give it to the Levi. You have to give it to the poor person. You have to give it to the kohen. It's nasan. And chalipin, the word chalipin, that kinyan is derech mekach. It's not gift type of kinyanim. It's a business type of transaction. So therefore, chalipin doesn't work, but agav would still work. Agav would be a better form of kinyan, and that's why it works. Papa gives another teretz over there. There, das acheres maknalai. I say shani. Here, he says really they would technically have to stand by the field. Really, they were kind of the fruits, the matnas aniyim and the matnas levium. In the case of Rabbi Gamliel, is because it's chotzer. It's something in their field because they now own that field and it's something in their field. But your question was, why don't you need them standing next to that field? It's very different. Our Mishnah is there's no other person selling it to them or helping them acquire it. Over here, you have Rabbi Gamliel helping them acquire it, helping Rabbi Shua and Rabbi Akiva acquire it. So you have another mind that's helping the process along. You don't need the one owning the field standing by his field. How do I know that concept? Now we learned in the Mishnah, Metzia. If we in our Mishnah, they were seeing them run after a Metzia. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, name Rabbi Yechon, the only time it works that you can say that whatever in my field, I want to acquire it, is if you could technically run after it and catch up to it and grab a hold of it, whatever is in the field. Uboya Rabbi Yirmiyah, Bamatona Heich. But what about a gift? Do you need that concept of, so if somebody throws a gift into your field, do you need to, in order to acquire it, you can run after and get it? Let's say somebody throws a deer into your field. Do you have to be able to run after it and catch up to it? So Kibla Minei Rab Abba Kahana had a tradition. By Matana, you don't need that he actually has to be able to physically grab it. Even if he can't grab it, his field would acquire it. Why? Why by Metzia do you say he had to have potentially been able to run after it and reach it? And by a gift, if someone throws a gift into his field, even if he can't reach it, can't run after it and grab it, he would still acquire it. My tama, because because when somebody else is helping the kinyan process along, so then you some of the rules are relaxed, and therefore you don't physically have to be able to grab a hold of what's ever in your field. Even if you can't, you're coin it automatically by the very fact that it's in your field. And so the Gemara is extending that the halacha that you need to be standing by your field is only if it's a Metzia. There's no other party selling it to you or gifting it to you. But if there's another party gifting it to you, then you don't need to be standing at your field. And therefore, in this case of the ship with the Matnas Aniyam, we didn't need Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Kiva standing by the field because Rabbi Gamliel was actually helping the process along by selling it to them or giving it to them. Rav Shimi, but Rav Papa, Shimi said to Rav Papa, Hari get, let's say a get. The husband gives a get to his wife, he's forcing it into his wife's, and he throws it into her chotzer. She becomes mugureshes. Ula explained, only if he's standing right by the field. But if he's not standing by the field, it doesn't work. But wait a second, the husband's helping her acquire it. So why does we need her to be standing by the chotzer? It should work automatically. Answers the Gemara, Shani get gets different. The Isa Bal Korcha. The get is different because get, the husband can force the kinyan onto his wife even against her will. Even if she doesn't want to acquire it, the husband could force the issue there. And therefore we need her to stand by the field. So Maskiv Larav Sheshab Dreid of Idei, will have Kal V'chayma. Shouldn't it be a Kal V'chayma to say that she does not have to stand by the field? Ma get the Isa Bal Karcha, a get which could be gifted or thrown into his wife's possession against her will. Only if she's standing by her field, then it works, and if she doesn't, it doesn't work, right? So matana, but a gift, the medaite, you need it's not such a good opinion. You need also the assistance of the recipient. You see, by get, you don't need the recipient, and nevertheless, you still need her to stand by the field. So also, when you need the assistance of the recipient, so it's not such a strong kinyan, like Kolshkein, of course, you need the recipient to be able to be standing by the field. So what the Gemara is basically asking, again, we're getting back to the original question, why isn't the requirement by Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Yeshua they were not standing by the field that Rabbi Gamliel was gifting them, gifting them the matnas anim and the matnas levium. How did it work in that Mishnah? You can't differentiate between das acheres makna yisoi, whether you need to stand by the field or not. Elam Ravashi explained, Chotzis Rabbi Mishim Yad. We go like here. Chotzer is because of Yad. V'loi gara mishlichus. A chotzer could work because it's like your hand. And even if it can't work because why does a chotzer work? Why does your property work? Because it's an extension of you. But it's not worse than a shliach. And even if you don't want to consider it your hand, because you're not standing next to it. Let's say a chotzer, your hand is always with you. You're always next to your hand. So your hand always can acquire something. Your chotzer would be like an extension of your hand only if you're standing there. But if you're not standing there, Not that chotzer wouldn't work, but it would work for a different reason. It would work because it's like your messenger. So gabe get. So when you're not standing there, gabe get the chayfu law by a get, which it's a detriment for her to accept the get. So if she's not standing by the chotzer, so what's the reason why the chotzer should work? Because of shlichus, because the chotzer becomes her messenger. Ein chavim la'adam el b'fanav. You can't do something detriment for a person only if she is right there in front of it, and she's agreeing that you should be the shliach. So the chotzer doesn't become a shliach if she's not standing there when it comes to a get. To receive a gift, which is a benefit for the person, even if he's not there. And so therefore chotzer wouldn't work because of yad, that's like your hand, but it would work because it's your shlichus. You can benefit from it even if you're not standing there. So the bottom line is, the reason why it worked by the Matnas Aniyim in the case of Rabbi Gamliel on the ship is because the reason why chotzer works, the field works, is if it's not working because of yad, because you're not right there, it'll at least work because we'll consider the chotzer, although it's an inanimate thing, but it becomes like your messenger, and therefore when it's doing something beneficial for you, it automatically works. But by get, since it does something detrimental for the lady, it's only if the lady is standing by the chotzer will the chotzer work. If she's not standing by the chotzer, it would not work. Again, this is only talking about a chotzer that's eina mishtameres, that's not watched. You have to, in other words, in order to make it a real kinyan, you have the owner should technically be there. Okay, we'll stop over here.